Welcome. It's another show day. I'm your host, Rex Sykes. Welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. And I've got a fabulous guest for you today. His name is TJ Bennett. He's a coach, a creator, a chief Desuckifier. And we'll ask him what he means by that. And often you'll find him clad in a cat-themed or a Snoopy-themed gear, hat, shirt, I imagine shoes, socks, who knows. TJ is pretty easy to spot in the crowd. But once you find him, you'll discover that his love for felines and cartoon beagles is matched by a mildly unhealthy obsession with making work not suck. So he spends his days listening intently to clients, helping them uncover insights that spark life-altering possibilities. And he spends his nights dreaming of the same thing, except everyone is dressed like clowns and he forgot to wear some pants. But rest assured, he will never show up to a session without trousers, and he will always show up with a fresh perspective that makes you think about work a little differently. So without any hesitation, without any further delay, I'm going to bring TJ up. Hi, TJ.
Hey, Rex.
Wait a second. Are you wearing a shirt? Let's see. Do you have
I am not. No, I am. But you can see behind me, I've got some Snoopy-themed artwork on the wall. And if you panned over there, I've got a couple of stuffed Snoopies on the thing. And maybe one of our 3 cats may show up here as well during the show.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here. TJ does a lot of things, and one of the things you do is a podcast. You had me as a guest on your podcast.
Good. Yeah.
Why don't we start just a little bit by talking about the podcast and what you do and why you do it and how you do it.
Yeah. No, thanks, Rex. And first of all, it was just delightful to hear you read that intro. I mean, I've shared that similar intro before, but the way you did it made me smile. So thank you for that. And my podcast is called the Desuckify Work Podcast. And you may have heard me nod to that in the bio there. I was blessed in my career to have a lot of times when work didn't suck. I worked in advertising for 25 plus years, and when it was at its best, it was one of the best work experiences I could imagine, because it was a place where you could really bring yourself into the workspace. I could wear my goofy t-shirts if I wanted to, but more importantly, I could express myself both directly with people, but even through my work, my creations that I came up with in ways that I wasn't finding in some other work experiences I had very early after college. And on the flip side of that, I had some not so great experiences where when things weren't going well, when work culture wasn't really designed to support that kind of bring your full self to work idea, it really sucks. And it creates all kinds of weird patterns and behaviors where I think we stop seeing each other really like human beings, and we see each other more like almost like avatars. Like we see the position, not the person. And we see people almost as obstacles for what we want to do, as opposed to potential collaborators for what we can do together. And having experienced enough of that on the flip side of all the great stuff, it really led me to want to, in this second career, working as a coach and working with companies and individuals, to find a way to give people some perspective on how work can be a lot better. Born about, it's almost been 2 years now. And the whole idea has been, I have my perspective, I have my points of view, I'll share that happily, but I wanted to bring on people who are doing this in lots of different ways, bringing lots of different perspectives into the conversation, so that we could create a much broader conversation and give people different ways in to think of how they can desuckify work for themselves.
So how do you desuckify work? I mean, in other words, what would you suggest to our viewers who are watching this either live or in replay? By the way, I want to make a point that normally this would broadcast to my Facebook groups, things like that. I've been booted out of Facebook again. I've got it on my phone. Can't use it on my computer. There's some conflict. Facebook keeps saying that my computer isn't the device that Facebook is on. I mean, bogus.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, we stream to different places, and so it could be YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is. I may or may not see the chat comments because I invite people to ask questions of you
Okay.
or to share comments. I may not see those or be able to put those up while we're on the air. Hopefully they'll come through and we'll notice. But so going back to the original premise, but that said, ask questions and comment. If you don't see this in the live show, then do it in the replay, because there's always a chance that we can answer the questions in the replay and the comments. But I appreciate you doing that. So, so back to you.
Well, I think that the beauty of the question, how do you desuckify work? I mean, the beauty is it's been answered almost 70 different ways now through the interviews I've been able to have on the podcast. So I certainly obviously encourage people to check out some of the episodes, including the one we did together, because that's what I'm learning is every person has a different perspective. Some, from your perspective, Rex, it's like really understanding the mind and how we can connect to ourselves in ways that then allow us to work together, collaborate better, and all that kind of stuff, and really recognize the power we have when we really connect to who we are. I've had people on who are focused more on the future of work and how do we, connect with technology and some of those things. I've had people who founded companies who can offer the perspective around, what does it mean to be a leader who makes work suck less? And some of that, what I've heard in these conversations, and some of it echoes my own thoughts, is, a lot of it is just simply listening to your team, paying attention to what they're experiencing, helping your team connect to who you are and who you want to be. So instead of just kind of, providing direction, providing sort of a mandate, this is what we need to do, helping people share in the vision for the company, understand how they connect to it. I think that's one of the hardest things. You work someplace and you're doing something day after day and you're like, why am I doing this thing? So if you can help people connect to sort of the bigger vision and why for a company, one of the things I work with a lot of people on is helping them connect to their personal why. What really gives you energy? What really motivates you? Because when you do that, if you figure out, like, for example, for me, my why, I use a tool to help you do it. And my why is to make sense of things. I'm a problem solver. So if you bring me into a company, I worked in advertising, you bring me into an ad agency and you tell me, every week you're going to get a new problem to solve. Client has some piece of communication they want to put out in the world, but we don't quite know what it needs to say, how to say it, where to say it, et cetera. And I'm going to give you a chance to do that. How does that feel? I'm excited. Now, if you shared the same information to me, but said it through the lens of, something like, the client has, a message that they want to get out into the world, and they want to make sure it's done the right way. And you're here to support them in doing it the right way. That would not connect with me nearly in the same way. And I probably wouldn't take that job or even consider that career if that's how it was framed. So helping people connect to what really makes them tick and then allowing them to connect that to what makes a company tick is a huge thing. There's a lot of other things I've experienced, but that's probably a good place to start.
Well, what I appreciate about you and what you said and what was in your introduction is listening intently.
Yeah.
Because I would submit that most people want to be heard, especially if they have an opinion or, something that is important to them.
Yeah.
In the job that, workers want to know that they're being paid attention to. They want to know that their contribution matters and that people are, willing to hear them out, one way or another. And so many people do not listen. They don't listen. They listen to speak or they listen to persuade otherwise. But so few people listen to gain understanding. Go, what is it that you need that I can help you do to be better at doing what you want to be doing? How can I help you solve what you want to solve?
Yeah.
And so what I appreciate about you is the very fact that you listen, you pay attention, And then like in your last statement, you said, that might not be a job I would want to take.
Mm-hmm.
That you have, your own criteria for what it is that you would choose to work with or not work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that listening piece is key. I think it's much more of a learned skill than we think. We all obviously hear things and we think we're listening, and maybe of course at times we are. But that simple mindset shift of listening, not to respond or to judge or to hopefully persuade, but to move into curiosity and wonder about what this person is saying or what this group is saying. Like, it doesn't mean you won't have a chance to speak your piece, but you'll learn so much more by really hearing somebody, and then ultimately that will probably then connect to what you say. Right now, my perspective has been informed by your perspective, as opposed to your perspective just being the source of my reaction.
Well, to the point, if somebody says I feel X, a follow up could be, oh, that's interesting. How did you come to that conclusion, or why is that important to you, or how do you and instead of saying, well, I don't agree with that, or I think otherwise, or somebody says I like the color yellow, and you go, no, I don't like yellow. Why? What does yellow mean? How did you come to like that? Why did was there something in your background, or how does it serve you? Any number of things that create. The important word that you said is curiosity.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being a stopping place, and then a place for me to say, no, I think it's this instead, or yes, I agree with you, but to actually create a connection. You said something else is really, we all, we hear, so we assume we're listening, and that may not be true. We speak and we assume we communicate, and that's true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I think, curiosity, if you fully kind of embrace that, it can be almost disarming. Meaning if you said something like, I really love the color yellow, and then somebody simply replied to you, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Like, you'd almost be for a second like, well, what do you mean? Tell me more. Nobody ever says, tell me more when I say yellow. They say, I like purple. I like blue. I like green. I hate yellow. It reminds me of my third grade classroom or whatever. So the invitation that comes from something as simple as just inviting people through whatever words you choose to tell you a little more about it. And then maybe that person goes, well, yeah, yellow also reminds me of my third grade classroom. And I loved my third grade classroom. It was the happiest time of my life. It also makes me think of sunshine and drawing suns up in the corners of all my artwork growing up. And those were some of the most fun, expressive moments of my childhood. Or I don't even have any idea why I like yellow, but now that you've asked, it sparked me to think about it. Maybe there is a reason why I like yellow, and I don't know. And when you bring that and then into the context of work and the conversations we have at work, I think, to your point, simply the act of those conversations allow me somebody to feel like I've been heard, somebody cares about me. Now I'm more inclined to want to share more. And then that may include things that are useful or beneficial to whatever problem we're trying to solve that day, that week. But it also then has the effect of kind of modeling some behavior where somebody might now be more curious about you. And I think, one of the things that is really interesting within organizations is we know like this very top layer of the people we work with for the most part. And we know them for the skills that they sort of have demonstrated, or the one or two perspectives that they occasionally share. But when work gets really interesting is when the sort of weird and random stuff, meaning the deeper you go in knowing somebody, the more you might know something about their background, something about, a particular love they have in their life. It could be a passion or a hobby, or they could be into a particular sport or a kind of music or whatever. And then suddenly, when you're thinking about putting, some folks together to do some work, you're not simply going, oh, let's grab Steve because he has good skills at designing web pages or something. It's like, no, let's actually grab Steve because this web page is actually for a musician, And Steve, remember how we talked about how he actually grew up, his dad taught music, and then he became a semi-professional musician for a while. Wouldn't that be really cool to have that complex human being in the conversation? I think the more we can create the opportunities to know each other better, the more we create opportunities for us to work together better, because we really do see each other, the full complexity of it, not just the resume, if you will.
Well, there's a few things, like a principle that people tend to like people who are like themselves.
Mm.
Well, I mean, obviously, if somebody's wearing a Snoopy shirt and somebody else wears a Snoopy shirt, you can go, "Oh, you like Snoopy, right?" I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a visual thing, and they go,
Yeah.
they can say, "Yes, I love Snoopy." They could go, "No, I just didn't have anything else to wear."
Right.
I mean, I hate Snoopy, but I'm wearing it because I'm out of clothes.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask, you don't know. You are operating on assumption.
Yep.
And that assumption could be, hey, we're like each other, or hey, we're not at all like each other. I think that's where some conflict comes in, because people don't bother to actually take the moment to listen, to get curious, to go, do we share things in value? Like the Venn diagrams, the overlapping circles, that section in the middle that you could color in would be the rapport area, the things we share in common, and then the stuff outside would be the stuff that is unique to us.
Yeah.
But when there's that overlap, is where we have things in common, where we might find, hey, you know what, I like working with you, and not only I like working with you, but I'd like to go out and have a cup of coffee with you. Where people create friendships and connections that go deeper than just the workplace. But certainly in the workplace, you should hope for, I would guess, mutual respect and the kind of camaraderie that comes from working on a shared purpose or a vision.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's beautiful about the example you gave is that almost no matter what the answer is to the, hey, you've got a Snoopy shirt on too, almost any answer could create a bond. There's the, we both love Snoopy, yay, high five, let's go get coffee. There's the, actually, it's the last thing I wear, and I don't really like Snoopy at all. Actually, I hate him. I was traumatized by him as a kid. Well, that's weird, because now we're this interesting, like, polar opposite thing that has the potential to bond us together. And now I might be curious to go, what was that about, getting traumatized by him? Or it could be like, I like Snoopy, but I'm more of a Winnie the Pooh guy, whatever. Like, and then it's like maybe we're sharing a passion for some, like we both realize, like, I'm Snoopy, you're Winnie the Pooh, and that unites us. So like the beauty of, I think, the moments of connection like that are, you don't have to be exactly like me. It's more like, I think I want to be able to relate to you, that you care about things the same way I do.
Well, this might sound a little bit crazy, but if I said, I like pizza, another person would say, what kind of pizza do you like? I love pepperoni. Somebody say, I love pineapple pizza with ham. Another person says, that's what kind of pizza? That's not pizza. Or I don't like anchovies. Or another person could say, I like baseball. And you'd go, well, what does pizza and baseball have in common? And the answer to that is sing something I like.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, one is I'm furthering the conversation about liking pizza. The other is, well, I like baseball. I like investing. I like going to the beach. So you like pizza. I like baseball.
Yeah.
It all creates a bridge if you think about it.
It totally does. And what's interesting even there is, like, the person who says I like baseball, now I'm like, that person's interesting. We were all talking about pizza, and he brought up, or she brought up, baseball. Right. How does that mind work? I want to know, so it's really the slight risk we feel in sharing ourselves sometimes. There's almost always a reward, because people are almost always like, that's interesting. And the more we can embrace that, I think the better off we are, for sure.
So when you work in a corporation, how is it that you work? I mean, how do you add value? You go, I'm going to help Desuckify the work experience for your employees. Or when you go, well, how do you progress? What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the conversation, and it starts with having that curiosity, right? Meaning, if I pretend to just know, like, the fix right out of the gate, I'm actually probably not going to do a great job. So I need to have this, like, probably a series of conversations with somebody to really get curious about what are the things that are making work suck for you guys. What are people doing? Is it collaboration isn't happening the way you'd like it to? People aren't trusting each other and they're working in silos. Um, are they questioning you as leaders? Are they not trusting you as leaders? Um, Whatever those answers are, I think you need to really get curious about that first and come to some shared understanding of that. Okay, so what I'm hearing is collaboration is kind of really tricky in this team. You've got maybe a one leader on your team who, for whatever reason, is getting into a lot of battles with people, and then you've got maybe the whole company feeling a little bit disconnected from the vision and strategy of the company, whatever it is. So then I would kind of think about, okay, well, what can support that, and it could look different for every client, and some of that is even trying to get a sense of how the client likes to work. But it's usually, there's an opportunity for a mix of, for at least as I do it, sort of team-based coaching programs and one-on-one coaching. So the team stuff might be, okay, you've got a team or a couple of teams who are not collaborating well. Well, let's create a cadence of meetings where we bring people together, and maybe we can talk about some of those real world examples, and I can help facilitate the conversation and hopefully ask some questions that get people thinking about it differently. Like, when so and so says that, what does that make you feel? Well, it makes me feel like they're not hearing me. Okay, now that you hear that, what does that make you think about what you're saying? Is, what are you actually trying to communicate? Oh, this. Oh, okay. And giving people chances to work through some of those challenging conversations in real time, and giving them hopefully the seeds that they can then take with them even after the coaching is done or in between coaching sessions. And then I also will do one-on-one coaching with particularly folks in leadership positions who have so much impact with the decisions they choose to make. And if somebody's struggling a little bit, you can help them there. If somebody's just feeling like, I'm disconnected from my team and I don't quite know how to engage with them in a way that's not disruptive, we can work through that. I mean, it really can take almost any form in terms of the challenges we're solving, but the solutions usually fall under some form of one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I also do some workshop-y kind of things, like we talked about finding your why, finding your purpose a little bit. Like, that's something I've done with companies where we'll go in and the whole team will together will discover what their individual whys are. And then in that framework, go, how does this help us work better together? How does this help us connect to whatever the big vision is, the big why is for the whole company? And how do we, again, get to understand each other better, know more about each other, so that we see people more deeply and ultimately work from that understanding instead of that real surface level stuff.
I like that. I really do. I'm going to preface my question with a statement that some may disagree with, and
Okay.
that's okay. And you may disagree with them, and it's okay. The term mastermind, for example, is bandied around, especially in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Everybody has a mastermind, and I argue, I submit that the notion of mastermind, as Carnegie Hill, wrote about it, kind of thing, was a group of people who come together around the vision of the person who owns the mastermind. It's not a brainstorming session. In other words, it's not the troubled problem solving kind of situation.
Yeah.
I have this mission or this vision, and I then select people who can work together with me toward that vision in harmony, which was a huge criteria for Carnegie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But each person in the mastermind has a specific task. So somebody might be the scientist, somebody might be the advertiser, somebody might be the seller, somebody might be the organizer, somebody's, they each have their own task, but they're working together toward this vision. To bring whatever they. So for Ford, it was, to get cars on the road. For Carnegie, he said, I know nothing about steel making. I don't know anything. I got the scientists who do that. I got the people who sell it. I got the people who mine it. I got all that kind of stuff. People say, well, what do you do? He goes, well, I I keep them working together in harmony. And if you don't think that's a problem, try and keep all these people happy, together in harmony. Anyway, my point being, you talk about the why, you talk about the purpose. When you talk about a corporate, entity made up of individuals who've come together, some will share the corporate vision. Some just wanted a job.
Yeah.
You have this kind of situation. The reason why I use the mastermind is because a lot of people, say this is a mastermind, but it doesn't fulfill the criteria of what a mastermind is according to them. But a corporation could, in other words, because you have different people doing different tasks. There's task-specific groups and things like that, and they're doing it in order to promote some aspect of this business. The whole bit, whatever.
Yeah.
So let's talk about clarifying purpose.
Yeah.
And that big why, because not only is it useful in the corporate arena, but for the people in their life, whether they want to be a business person or an entrepreneur, or they're a small business, or they're an individual, looking at a career. Would you talk more on how to get to that point where you're clarifying your purpose, you're clarifying your why, so that you can be more successful in life or in your working with others?
Yeah, I think there's some layers to it. If you're an organization and you've already kind of figured out your why, that may be great. I think even if you can find a way to share it with the team in a way that is not simply like, we crafted this so that you may enjoy it, but more like really help people understand the thinking and the feeling that's behind it, and let people know that it is not a sort of dead organism, but it is a living organism that we're hoping that people can contribute to and get excited by. But I think the trickier part, but the part that I really actually like to focus on, is when anybody finds out their personal why. Again, I talked about mine being kind of making sense of things, problem solving, helping them to see how that can connect to whatever the vision is. And it doesn't even necessarily matter why you came into the company. Like you said, you might have come in because I just needed a job, and this one at least seemed okay. I think you may shift some of those people's perspective on work a little bit when you tell them, I want to understand you. I want to understand what makes you tick, what motivates you, what gets you excited to get up each day. And maybe that isn't related to work right now, right? Maybe right now, the things that get you excited are the way you can contribute to your family, the opportunities you'll have to connect with your friends, some of the hobbies you have. But if I can get curious enough to look into all of that, all of you, and realize this is what really drives you. You love to make things better. You love to kind of stir things up, stir the pot, challenge the established wisdom. Maybe you like to just make a difference. And maybe your current experience is when you show up at work, I don't know how to do that. All they tell me is I show up and I get a project on my desk on Monday, and they tell me, you better have it done by Friday or else. I guess that's just a job then, right? But if you tell me you're the person who wants to make an impact, you get a lot. I've learned from you that you get a lot of value from making a difference in people's lives. I want to share with you a little bit about how our company is trying to make a difference in people's lives. And it may not be the grand vision of, curing a disease or something that sounds really huge, but it could be, our company does what we do to support small businesses who are looking to grow. And how we do that is we create some marketing and some other things to help them do that. And we do it in a way that not only helps them grow, but helps them connect to their own purpose and share their purpose in the world, share their vision and value in the world. And here's how you can connect to that. When I tell you to work on this project, what I'm really asking is, can you give some of yourself to this project? Can you bring the part of you that wants to make a big impact on somebody's lives to this project? And now I'm helping you see that when you build a website for somebody or create a new advertising campaign, or you're working in some other field and you design some new product or whatever, it's not simply a thing to be created because we create those things. It is a service. You were in service of the person that ultimately receives the benefit of that, who now gets to live out their own purpose and their own vision because we supported them through their marketing or whatever. That conversation, either replicated by several different leaders in the organization, sparked by maybe a workshop that someone like me might host, and then driven into the organization through a series of ongoing conversations where you continue to show people ways to bring more of that purpose into the shared vision. It's hard, in my experience, it's hard to have that shift and not at least feel a little better about what you're doing every day, because now you see the point, right? And the point actually maybe serves you in some way, which is when the magic, I think, really happens.
So what you're talking about is clarity.
Yeah.
If you have some form of clarity.
Yeah. And it's a form of transparency that is not always the first thing companies think about when it comes to transparency. A lot of times it's, oh, we'll be transparent about, how we did last quarter. Yeah, we made, a few $1,000 or a few $1 million, depending on the size of the company. Or, these are the policies. I want to make sure the policies. I'm going to be transparent about that. But more like transparency into what I think of as like the soul of the organization. Why do we exist? Why should anybody care? Somebody asked this question earlier in a conversation I had, but like, if we were no longer in the world, like, what would be the hole? What kind of a hole would be in the world because we're no longer in it? That does provide, I think, a lot of clarity for people, because unless you're in enough of a leadership position to have the window into those conversations regularly, you're just kind of sitting there receiving these bombs every week, and then in the middle of doing them, some other bomb comes in and says, actually, I want you to completely shift gears and go in this direction. And it's, how could you possibly be clear if you don't at least have some indication of what the point of it is, why we're trying to do this? And even within the why we're trying to do this, like, yeah, because we're trying to connect to our customers and help them develop something big and beautiful that they feel great about. We're not always going to get it right the first time. There's going to be shifts. There's going to be changes. But know that we're always putting it through the lens of the purpose of this organization and how you can contribute to it. So I think that's how it makes a difference for people.
Well, I love the notion of transparency. I think, especially in this day and age, the willingness to be completely transparent is important.
Yeah.
What do you have to hide?
Yeah.
And Dr. Jekyll is there's someone hiding within you.
Yeah.
So I think transparency is one of those things that should be a given, that here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. Here's what we want to accomplish, and are you with us? Because you don't have to be. And if you don't want to be with us, go somewhere else. But if you are with us, then here's what the purpose is. The interesting thing is that money is not the big motivator that everybody thinks it is. The internet wealth programs left and right and everything else, money making this and that. But at a certain point, money, when your needs are taken care of, unless you're just a greedy hoarder, and there are those.
Sure.
Having tons and tons of more money isn't as fulfilling as having a purpose, working with other people for a shared purpose, helping people, whatever. It's like happiness. They go after X amount of dollars. It used to be 70,000. Now it might be a different figure, but after a certain amount of money, you're not any happier.
Yeah.
You're not any freer necessarily. You can have billions of dollars, but and you could own hundreds of houses, but you still can only live in one at a time.
Yeah.
So there are other things like recognition.
Mm-hmm.
education, value sharing,
Yeah.
clarity and purpose. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
why are we doing what we're doing? And that
Mm-hmm.
feeling of fulfillment, because your value may be, say, freedom, and so when
Mm-hmm.
I do this, I feel free. My
Yeah.
value might be family or something else, or somebody else's. And when they do the same, they're working in the same company, but they're doing it to fulfill that value for themselves. So that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the more that the corporate leaders can help people understand we're doing something good here, and
Yeah.
hopefully they are, because I mean there are
Sure.
plenty that aren't, but I mean
Yeah.
the ones that are, you go, do you want to join us in this? Because everything, you kind of lay it out. Here's our
Mm-hmm.
purpose, here's our vision, here's our mission,
Yeah.
here's how we operate, here's the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Are you with us?
Yeah.
That people will get more from that than just the salary that they're getting. Because if it's just about salary, there's plenty of ways to get money.
Well, yeah, and typically, I mean, this isn't always the case, but if you're interested in a job, at some point, you're hopefully trying to find out, like, is this in my range? Meaning, you have a range of between $80,000 and $100,000 on your job. You try to find out, okay, are you in that zone? Great. Now let's talk about the stuff that matters. I think what you just brought up and what's really interesting is like those conversations, certainly in my own experience, and I will say this both as the um, interviewee and probably more than I'd like to admit as an interviewer, that conversation around here's who we are, here's why we do it, here's why we believe it matters, here's why we believe what we do is a good thing, right? To your point, like even if that gives you the opportunity to then say, I don't think that's a good thing. Okay, here's why we think it is. And if you don't want to connect to that, fine. But those kinds of conversations, kind of pitching the guts, the soul of the company to somebody first and foremost, and saying, here's what matters to us. Here's what we're really trying to do together. And if that sounds interesting to you, now let's talk about how you might contribute to that. I think we jump right into the how you might contribute to that, and not even at the level of I value your potential contribution, but more like, well, so here's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody to be a graphic designer, and you're going to design some websites, and you're going to design some social media posts, some Instagram stuff, maybe do a few TikTok videos. And there's more to the work than that. And let me share a little bit about that. What kind of experience have you had in that area? Like on some level, yeah, that conversation needs to happen, meaning some reasonable description of what a day looks like and some reasonable expectation that, yeah, I can do that. But to me, that's like the table stakes in the same way that the salary conversation should be the table stakes. Okay, you can meet my salary. Okay, we both agree that you can probably do this job at a reasonable level. Great. Now let's talk about what really matters. And I think we just don't have that conversation very much. Or sometimes when we have that conversation, it's more the platitude version of that conversation. Like, here's what it says on our website and on the posters in the break room, but not giving people a chance to really embody what you said. If a company's value is freedom, what does that really mean to you? If a company's value is curiosity, what does that really mean? And how do you live it? Tell me how that shows up in the work that you do, in the product you put out, whatever that is. I think we're so in the weeds on so many of these conversations that quite naturally we just go in and go, yeah, I can do that work. Yeah, I'll take 85,000. Great. And then we're miserable because we have no alignment on any of the good stuff.
Well, so what can the individual do who's seeking a career or seeking a job or gets an interview, and they have this conversation? Are there some suggestions that you would have for them to ask their potential employer
that
would, so that they could discover if there's a fit there other than, wow, I just got this job offer and it's X amount of dollars, and
Yeah. I think there's a few things you can do. One is certainly on the conversation side, the interview, doing a little prep, one, get curious, find out what you can about the company, but then form some questions about it. I see on your website it says that you really care about X. Why do you, what do you care about, and how will I experience that on the job? When will I feel that on the job? So I think, getting yourself, some questioning that is also above the fray, and that can feel scary. In an ideal world, the interviewer opens that door first, but we don't live in an ideal world. So I think you can crack that door open, and you can learn a lot by just how, somebody even responds to that question. Like, "Ooh, what are you talking about? I want to talk about, whether or not you can, make the thing so that we get paid for the thing, and so that, I can pay you." If it goes that way, you might have your answer already. But if they're open to it, then you can go deeper. But I think there's also, other things you can do. One of the things that can be really interesting is talking to people who either currently work or have previously worked for the company. Go on LinkedIn, poke around a little bit. It might be easier for folks if they're not working there currently. It might be a little less scary. I would pick at least a couple of people, because somebody might have an axe to grind. So, but like, what was it really like there? Like, they talk about some of these values, which actually struck me as really interesting, but I'm worried that that's just talk. Was it just talk? And maybe somebody says, yeah, for the most part, kind of, you came to work there. Yeah, we sort of believed in those values. But they might say, no, I got to live it every day, and here's how I got to live it. And actually, it was built into my job description to live out to those values. And I had to, we had conversations monthly with each other around how we were living out those values. Oh, well, that's a very different place than the one where it was just kind of like, it was on the wall, it was on the website. So there's a guy that I had on my podcast, Andre Martin. He wrote a book called Wrong Fit, Right Fit. And I would recommend that to anybody, because he's got a lot of good tools around this. He's kind of a cultural strategist in the world of work, and he helped me uncover some of these things as well. Like, there's more than the interview that we can do when it comes to finding some of this information out.
Well, I'm going to present something and then ask you again. In the film business, of which I'm part of my life is devoted to.
Mm-hmm.
The 70s, a friend of mine said, I suck at interviewing. Really? And he goes, yeah. He says, I'm horrible at it. Because when you go on a casting call, they sometimes meet you first,
yeah,
and then you get to audition based on what they like you. Other times you audition, and if they like you, they bring you back.
Yeah.
His thing was, I'm horrible at interviewing. So he said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to apply for all these jobs that I don't want, so that I can just develop my interviewing skill, being comfortable with the person talking, being able to answer questions, because I don't want the job. I want to act,
Yeah.
But and he did. And, and he said he learned, an awful lot, because if any exercise, you do, if you exercise repeatedly, consistently, correctly, you're going to develop that muscle, whether it's mental muscle or physical muscle or vocal muscle or whatever. So he got better at interviewing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he left that career and became working for the largest advertisers on the planet, things like that. And he worked for Disney and all these different things. But he had, and interestingly enough, when he went to work with Disney, this was again like in the 70s, early 80s, the corporate culture was, there's Walt, and everything was, Walt was everywhere. It was, I've entered this religious company, everybody's like, whoa. It's not the same today, but back then, Walt was certainly the figurehead, and it was all this deference. But they had this whole corporate kind of culture that you got involved with that helped him to assimilate. He became, Disney-fied, or whatever at the time, and then went on to work for even larger companies. But so the person going on the interview, we were talking about, finding stuff out or asking the companies or people who were there, from LinkedIn or something. do they is it all talk? Do they walk their talk, or is it all BS? 'Cause
Yeah.
that side of it. Now, the side that my friend came from, I'm going on this interview and I'm not really very good at it. What might they? Do you have some suggestions for them when they're sitting there
Yeah.
to help them?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple interesting things in there that I want to touch on too. But as far as the interview goes, I mean, I think your friend's exercise is an interesting one. I think there's a small maybe moral quandary in there, like that I'm going on all these interviews for jobs that I don't want. I think people can find ways around that in their own mind, but I do think having lower stakes conversations can help you. Meaning, whether it's with friends or whomever, just trying to get into the realm of being able to practice having those kinds of conversations. I do think that can help. I actually wonder now, I'm like, are there AI tools that can help with this where you could actually practice interviewing with somebody? But that's a whole nother semi-scary world. But I think
are.
I think the part of the key is what you said. You got to do the practice. So however you can get the practice, and I think it can happen whether you talk to your spouse, your friends, or whomever. I think you can at least get the muscles going. Like, maybe it's like if I was talking to my wife, I'd say, like, if you can go on their website and create like 5 questions for me based on what you learned for that website and what you kind of know about my job, so that I get the muscle memory, the muscle development of, I don't know the question, I now have to respond to it. The stakes are lower, so I can probably take some more risks. And then from that, in an ideal world, you can get some feedback from that, whether it's from the person you're talking to or, certainly, as a coach or somebody who works with people, you can also do it in that kind of setting as well, where it's like, okay, now that we've gone through the trial run, are you open to some feedback on how it went and where you did do it correctly, where maybe you didn't, so that we can get you to correct, and then we can keep repeating that process. So that's one thing. I think watching people in interviews can be really interesting too. You can learn a lot to see how people show up. Some of it's just body language and how they are, noticing how they listen, and that's actually a beautiful part of this, is it can ultimately come back to the mindset of how you walk into this interview. If you walk into an interview saying, I am on a stage and I am being judged, it's going to be hard not to be a little awkward. But if it's like, I am going into a conversation where I want to be curious about what this other person is all about and what their company is all about, where I'm going to have an opportunity to learn new things, where I'm going to have an opportunity to maybe get some insights that I didn't think I was going to get. Even that mindset shift, I think, can make a big difference too, to just step into it like, oh, this isn't a trial, which is, I think, when you're not great at interviewing, and that's what it feels like. This is a chance to learn and grow and develop in the context of a conversation. So let's bring those tools to bear, bring curiosity and wonder and my listening skills.
No, I think it's great. I mean, and I agree with you. When my friend did that, I'm kind of like, you're wasting these people's time.
Yeah.
If you're going and you have no intention of working for them, you're just wasting their time, which didn't seem to bother him. Didn't seem to bother him at the time.
Yeah.
And the extra, but I mean, you could, and I guess he would defend it by saying, I could role play it with like you or somebody else, but the stakes aren't the same as if I went on an actual interview and I were nervous, But the interesting thing about that mindset, I'm not going to take the job, so I'm just going to see if I can get the job.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the end result is removed, right? So, but the goal is to get hired.
Yeah.
Then, thank you, but I'm not going to do it. But take the moral or ethical stuff out of the equation. The idea of rehearsing and being there. Now, coming from a film background, it's interesting, as a person who's cast movies and also been on the other side where I'm trying to get cast, one of the things I understand from casting directors and directors is they want the actor to walk in as if I am the perfect person for this job. I am that character.
Yep.
There's nobody in the world who can do it, but not be an egotistical person like I am better than And also, never lie. Can you ride a horse? Oh, absolutely. Can you ride a horse? Oh, yes, I can. Can you do it? Sky? Oh, of course I can. And then they get to set and you can't do any of it. They don't want you lying. They want you to be absolutely truthful. If they need to train you, they'll train you. But they want you to own your space. In other words, they want to know that you're not this desperate, needy person who, you're groveling for the. And I think that applied to business in general.
Yeah.
If they're looking for an advertiser, or they're looking for a plumber, or they're looking for, if you have the chops and the skills and you have the competence, then you should convey the confidence would come with that position. Hey, I've been plumbing for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. I can. So there's an attitude of I am the right person for this, and that should be conveyed, because if you know what I mean? But at the same time, there has to be a fit.
Yeah, I think you do want to show up with that confidence, and I think what I'm curious about as you discussed that, like, I think I am the right person for this role as I understand it now, but I am going to come in with some curiosity to either confirm or negate that. Meaning, but that puts me in a place of I need to learn some things to find out if, in fact, I am the right person for this job. And that can be a subtle but important mindset shift, because now you're coming in like, I know I'm good at what I do. Whatever level you grade that at, you know where you are. In this job, you probably applied because, well, it said it's a mid-level art director job, and that's roughly where you are in your career. I know I can do that. Now I show up and go, okay, if I'm of a mindset of like, I want to make sure that I'm the right fit for this, and as I understand it, this company is the right fit for me. Now I'm in a curiosity and questioning mode, and now I'm listening, not with the lens of like that they're going to tell me what I want to hear so that it confirms that I'm going to get this job, but more like, is this my kind of company? Is this the place that has some values that I share? Does the way they work sound like the way I like to work? Because I might have thought going in, oh, this is going to be perfect. And then as I described, what a typical day looks like, it's like, well, they collaborate a lot differently than I'm used to. Maybe I don't want to be here, and that's okay. So I think the baseline confidence that I am the right fit as I understand it, plus the curiosity to really clarify whether all of that's true, I think is a pretty good recipe to have a good interview at the very least. And that's ultimately all you can kind of take ownership of.
Well, you also recommended like doing your homework, doing your due diligence, asking people, sure, is this company, and if you do that, I think, a lot of people oftentimes they go, I got this interview, and then they go and they don't know anything about the company. They don't know anything about the industry. They don't know anything about the people, and they're there, and somebody would say, you could ask them a question related to any of those things, and they're like, So be prepared, that motto, be prepared.
Yeah. Well, I think the beauty is, as somebody who's been on both sides, like the best interviews when you're the interviewer is when the person asks good questions to me. Like I care about their answers, but mostly I'm trying to get to know them through their answers. So there's not really a wrong answer. It's more like, what's your spin on the right answer? Tell me how you solve this kind of project. Tell me, when you're happiest doing what kind of work, blah, blah, blah. Like, have you worked on this kind of thing? Like, if you answer you haven't, it's not even necessarily wrong. It's just like, well, then that gives me a different question to follow up with. Okay, you haven't. What do you think about it? Do you have any knowledge of this industry? Do you have any da-da-da-da? But when they come and go like, yeah, I was on your site, or like, I read one of your LinkedIn posts recently, and you talked about how your company is really big into celebrating small victories. Like, what does that look like? Like, what was one of your favorite examples of when you celebrated that? Like, for me, as the person being interviewed, I'm like, oh wow, they did their research, and they're asking me a question that indicates they want to understand what that really feels like. And I'll do my best to answer it. And I might even be like, I don't remember the most recent one, but it always feels good. And I'm happy to come back to you if I can think of a good example, because sometimes it can feel like you're on the spot. But I really love getting questioned in a way that says, curious about you. I want to know more. And I want to figure out if I can connect with you, you know?
So, TJ, we're out of time. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's gone by pretty fast. And
Yeah.
I want to, before we close, ask you, what, if anything, do you want to say to leave the audience with? And I'm going to ask you a question, then you can answer anything else. But the pudding factory.net, we've not even mentioned your website. So there's that I want to know about, but also how whatever's on your heart that you'd like to leave as a parting comment or statement, please feel free to do that too. And before you do go, what is the pudding factory?
So the Pudding Factory is my company. So that's my coaching company. So it is me and my cats. That is our company. But it is, rooted in a silly story, which I can tell pretty quickly, which is one of our cats that we used to have. All of our cats, we talk to them, and we also kind of talk for them. So meaning we have these little mini conversations all the time. And the conversation I had with our cat Marvin years ago was, he came down the stairs. I hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, "Hey, buddy, where you been all day?" And my answer for him was, "I've been working at the pudding factory all day." I don't really know where it came from. Maybe I had pudding earlier in the day. I have no idea. But it sounded like a funny, delightful thing to me. And then, a couple of years later, I started my company, and I was like, that memory stuck. And so that's the name. I think the thing that I want people to hopefully walk away with is that work, however we define it, whatever we choose to do, it is this significant part of our lives. And I don't necessarily even mean significant like you have to make it matter in a great way, although for some of us it does. But almost half of our waking hours are spent doing something connected to work. Why in the world should we just accept that it should be drudgery, that it should just suck, that we have to just tolerate whatever is thrown at us? We actually have a lot of agency in this, in life in general, but more so than I think we're aware of when it comes to work. And so I just invite people to explore that more. What can you influence? How can you get better at interviewing? How can you learn more about companies when you do interviews so that you feel more likely to make the right choice? Because now I know I love these people. I don't know if I love these people. How can you find ways to connect to your purpose at work, whatever you define that as? How can work potentially be at least one outlet for your way of finding meaning in the world? How can you do that? And if you're a leader, how can you make work not only better for the people on your team, but sort of by extension better for yourself? Meaning, if you're currently showing up and it's like, oh, it's just so hard to motivate people, and it's so hard to kind of get the projects across the finish line, that probably really sucks for you, even if you're the top of the chain in a company. Shifting your mindset, helping people connect to the why, the purpose, the reason for being of your company and their reason for being, is probably going to make work a lot better for you too. And the quality and the experience of work for everyone else will be better. And it becomes this, beautiful marriage of people doing what they want in service of things that you want, which is when it, work ultimately feels really good. So I just invite people to realize their agency, connect to it, and don't settle. We don't have to settle.
Wow. Well said. And I want to tell everybody, hey, if you want more of TJ, go find him. And also, you do this. It's an amazing podcast that you have, and you're a great host and a great interviewer. And I was fortunate to be on your show. But go, the running down below is the how you get to the podcast. But I'm sure they could just go TJ Bennett podcast, and they would find you on
probably
wherever you. So go and check out the podcast. And TJ, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom, your expertise with this audience. And it's great knowing you. It really is.
Yeah. Likewise, Rex, and thanks for having me on the show. It was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed this.
Well, so hang around. I'll see you in just a moment, and then we'll close out the show. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
TJ Bennett, everybody. So be sure to go visit him and go visit him at his podcast. Go visit him, look him up online, and enjoy, because I know you will. So I want to tell you about something that I'm thoroughly excited about, and something that I know you want to know more about, even if you don't know what it is. I've created a program called Create Your Best Life using Einstein and Tesla's genius. It's about using the genius of people like Einstein and Tesla, their strategies, their methods, their principles, their practices, and others to be able to create your best life, or to live life on your terms. So this program is about unblocking yourself and understanding how to go through challenges and hardship, and to be able to transform that for yourself by learning how to let go and to relax, to release, to tune into your own creativity and your intuition, as Tesla and Einstein had demonstrated. So it's a very powerful, practical program. There's manuals, there's videos, there's all sorts of stuff. And it's right there. You can go check it out at rexsikes.com/Einstein. But I encourage you to go. And if you go and you like what you see, then enroll, because it is a powerfully positive, transformative program that you're going to want to do. And you can go at your own pace. There are Q&As. There is a community. There's all sorts of different things. And I'm actually rolling some of the program out. I'm continuing to keep it alive. There's a live component to it. And there's modules that are being dropped and stuff. So check it out. Look at it. Sign up. Join me and the others, and have a fabulous day creating your best life by understanding that the genius of these people was how they use their mind to, for example, Tesla would, create all these inventions, about Tesla. Einstein would go on thought experiments and things like that. Da Vinci was able to do all sorts of incredible things. Men and women throughout history have used their mind and their imagination to create not only wonderful things and wonderful lives for themselves, but also incredible things, opportunities, and resources and possibilities for everyone else. And this is what you get to tap into and to use to create your own best life. And not just for you, but for your friends and for your family, or whomever is important to you. So go check it out. With that in mind, I'm going to say so long. It's been my pleasure. We got a great guest coming up next time, so stay tuned. And again, in the comments, you can leave in the replay, leave comments or ask questions, if it's at YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is. They didn't come through today, so I don't know what's going on. My back of the stage person's not there today to assist with this, so I don't know what happened. But feel free to leave comments, and the next time we see you live, ask your questions live. Now you know what to do. I'm Rex Sikes, and I encourage you to think this way. If you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. Best thing to do is celebrate everything. And with that, I say so long. I'll see you the next time. It's been our pleasure.